What to make of the news conference given yesterday by the Commissioner of Police in KwaZulu-Natal, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, where, it was a lengthy briefing and he made lots of allegations, but perhaps the most significant one, which Cyril Ramaphosa has declared a matter of grave national security concern, is that the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu is aiding criminal syndicates. That there was a political motive behind the disbanding of the political killings unit in KwaZulu-Natal, and the ulterior motive was fueled by cash from the criminal syndicates who wanted it gone because it was starting to be effective, not only in terms of killings of political figures in KwaZulu-Natal, but in terms of uncovering a connected web involving business people like Vusimusi Cat Matlala and senior police officers, people in the criminal justice system, and that the minister was part of all of that. Jeff Wicks, investigative journalist with News 24, joins us now. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me in a different slot.
Jeff, what to make of this? The reporting that you've done, particularly around Cat Matlala and the SAP's 350 million rand tender and all of that stuff, and work done by other investigative units, I don't think anybody can argue that there is not too much of a linkage between senior people in the criminal justice system and senior people in organized crime. But yesterday's allegations, are they completely off the mark and designed to muddy the waters as a sort of preemptive attack? Does Mkhwanazi genuinely believe all of what he said, but he's been misled, or it's all true? It's all true. Where in that sort of triangle of possibilities does both your instinct and your experience in covering this field take you?
Well, John, the best place to start is what we know. And I know for a fact that Vusimusi Matlala and his very plush tender are at the center of this entire scandal. So there is definitely an element of truth to this. We also know that Mkhwanazi made public several WhatsApp messages which were drawn directly from Vusimusi Matlala's phone, and those messages are the really damning ones. And whilst you did say the briefing was lengthy, we can distill it down into this: that a businessman with links to the underworld, a criminally accused person charged with the attempted murder of his former lover, and a host of other crimes, not including tender irregularities, is exercising political sway, seemingly, and has the ear of the minister via a proxy whom he's paying for this access. And this businessman, who has, no locus to be receiving classified documents, is getting briefings from this political intermediary days after the political killings task team is disbanded. And I think that's the intimation, was that there was an ulterior motive in closing this team. And then if that is true, what was the end result meant to be? Were investigations against Matlala meant to be scotched? Was his tender meant to be saved? We know that didn't happen. So, the sting for Mkhunu is his link to Matlala, obviously, because Matlala is a allegedly nefarious figure. And then the key for me is going to be understanding the relationship or non-relationship between Mkhunu and the so-called proxy in this case, Mkhwanazi, because he's on record in Parliament as saying that he doesn't know this man. And certainly from what we heard yesterday, the counter is true. So, this is an issue that is going to have seismic impact on the criminal justice system. Arguably the most significant scandal we've seen since the days of Jackie Selebi.
If it's true.
If
Senzo Mchunu is somewhere in this web, maybe not at the center, maybe, on one of the thicker strands there he sits, and that he has been feeding Brown Mkhwanazi with information which Brown Mkhwanazi has no right to receive and which he, as the police minister, is illegally sharing. And what's the evidence at the moment for that, other than WhatsApps put into a PDF and shared with journalists yesterday?
Well, that's about the sum total of it, John. But and I think that's where the next step for the police minister is going to be so crucial. You know, he released a statement yesterday saying that he will not allow his credibility or probity to be questioned. But in the same breath, what was conspicuously absent from that statement was any sort of explanation on this Brown Mkhwanazi issue. If he doesn't know the man, he must come out and say it. If he does, then he lied in Parliament. And I think that is of critical importance. But again, you know, beyond the allegations of his connections to the criminal underworld and to Cap Mklala and this massive procurement out of SAPS, is to say, well, what effect is this going to have on the police force? I know the police released a statement this morning saying, yes, it's business as usual. But I don't know. If I was an officer pulling on my uniform this morning, I would do so with a certain modicum of uncertainty. You know, this represents a complete rout of the top management of not only the SAPS but the ministry, and it follows several high-profile arrests in crime intelligence which did exactly the same thing. I think the president is right. You know, this is of grave national security interest and is on the fringes of being called a crisis.
Because if the allegations are not true, then either Mkhwanazi believes them to be true and has been misled, or he's deliberately making false allegations, in which case I ask myself, what's his motive for that? And perhaps the motive is he's had a look at the other senior police officers who are being arrested and saying, you know what, the Senzo Mchunu is cleaning out the rotten apples, the many, many, many rotten apples in this SAPS barrel. And I don't want to be one of them, and therefore let me muddy the waters and go on the attack. And then whatever Senzo Mchunu does to me afterwards, I go, well, that's because I called him out and showed his rotten roots. So, I mean, one of the things I hate about this is not knowing who to believe, because everything is possible.
I mean, I equally loathe covering stories related to the police because, you know, it's very difficult. Things are not linear. It's very difficult to identify the villains and the heroes. That said, there's certainly prima facie evidence that the minister needs to now explain.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what he does next.
Jeff Wicks, thank you very much indeed, investigative journalist with News 24.